In this video, we're going to talk about if you have to use finished glazing putty after your body filler. Okay, I got a question on YouTube, and the question comes from Jerry Lester. Says, wouldn't hide build primer mixed in primer fill any voids? And this is a video where I am applying some body filler, and then I come back and apply some glazing putty on top of that to finish it out. And you are correct. High build primer does fill imperfections. However, the better you can get your body work, and you don't necessarily have to use glazing putty. That's just an added measure to make sure that everything is correct and there's very minimal imperfections. You can finish out your body filler and apply primer straight over that. But by using glazing putty, it is a lot more expensive than body filler. And you can put a thin coat of that. You don't want to put it on thick. You want to do all your filler work with body filler. You just put a very skim coat on and block it out. And this will really eliminate the amount of priming you have to do. Now, the glaze putty is more expensive than body filler, but when you look at the overall cost, the better you can get that, less imperfections you have before you prime, the less primer you're going to use. Now, like I said, you can finish out your body filler. Some of the premium body fillers they have today work really well. I know 3M makes some good body fillers, Evercoat, and they work, some of them you don't really have to use the glaze putty. I mean, they sand nice, they finish out nice, but I just have a habit of always putting a skim coat after I'm done and blocking it out, and that way I can prime and block one time. Plus, if you had a lot of imperfections in your body filler, and you may have to primer and block, 2 times or even 3 times. And that's not only going to cost you a lot more, it's also going to take a lot longer to do that, because each time you prime, you got to make sure everything's masked off properly, and you got to prime it, then you got to allow it to dry and then block it. So I really think using glaze putty really speeds up the process. But again, I'll be the first one to admit there's not one right way to get from A to B in this industry. There's a lot of ways to do it, and I'm sure here on YouTube or other places you hear of a lot of different methods to do it. And I'm not saying my way is the only right way. I'm just saying this is what works well for me. Okay, next question comes from Matt. It says, hi Donnie, I'm just curious, would it be okay just to wax and grease remove? I just worry about getting stuck in certain places of panels and causing rust. Now, what this video is referring to, I'm demonstrating how to prepare a new panel, an OEM panel, and where we sand it with some 500, scuff it, and get it ready to paint. And after that, I wash it with soap and water, which I always do before I get ready to paint. I recommend washing it just to help remove contaminants, problems that you may have in the booth, fish eyes, and things like that. And then I'll also wipe it down with wax and grease remover in the booth, after it's masked off. Make sure all the fingerprints and any contaminants are off the surface. But if you've done a lot of body work to this vehicle and you have a lot of exposed metal and you're getting it ready to prime, I'd maybe recommend blowing it off real good with compressed air. Get rid of all the dust and dirt that you can. Getting it in the booth and then wiping it down with wax and grease remover. But in this video, I'm just prepping a new panel. There is some bare metal, some of the edges burn through, but it's very minimal. So yes, I recommend go ahead and washing that. All right, the next question comes from DGZ. I probably didn't say that right, but it says, great video. I clear coated about a week ago, but I can still imprint my fingernail in the paint. Is it okay to wet sand and buff it, or should I wait longer? Thank you. If it has been a week, there might be an issue. I did have this happen to me one time, and I was using Acme paint, which is a Martin Seniors or Sherwin-Williams. It's all the same paint with different brands, and it didn't dry for a long, or it didn't ever dry. It stayed kind of gummy. It would fingerprint on there, and I had the rep come look at it, and what they decided had happened is I had trapped too many solvents in there. So I was putting it on too fast, rushing it, and it never did dry correctly. Never got fully hard. You could go a week later, and not just your nail, you could push down with your finger and it'd leave a fingerprint. So in a case like that, probably not the answer you're wanting, but you're probably going to have to strip all that off down to metal, and that paint doesn't sand too good because it's still kind of gummy. If this is the problem that you're having, you'll probably have to use a chemical stripper or something to get that off of there. But if you're not seeing fingerprints on it, you know, if it's not that soft, I'm not sure how soft you're talking about, you should be able to sand and buff the next day with most paint systems. The clear coats should be ready the next day. They're not fully hardened, but it's easier to buff them during that time. If you wait too long, the clear coat gets harder, and it's harder to sand and buff. So if it's not still kind of gummy feeling, or if you can't leave just a fingerprint on it just by putting your finger on there, you should be okay to go ahead and sand and buff. But it kind of depends on how soft you're talking about. So if you leave me another comment on there and kind of expand on that, you know, whether it will fingerprint or how soft that paint is might determine, you know, what you need to do. But I know when that happened to me, you couldn't even sand it. I mean, the paper would just stick to there and clog up. Hopefully that's not the case that you're having. Paint takes about 90 days. PPG recommends 90 days for it to fully cure and to fully get hard. So that might be what the process you're in. It's just not fully hardened. And hopefully that's the case, and you should be able to buff that. Well, that wraps it up for this video. If you have other questions or didn't clearly clarify the answer, be sure and leave it another comment below, and I'll try to get to that. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.